Hello and welcome to the data overview for Georgia Cyber Academy. This was created for the school board and data team by me, Emily Diamond. Let's get started. Today's agenda, we'll talk about the purpose of this presentation first, followed by Georgia Cyber student and teacher demographics. We will then go into the state EOC data. I will provide an analysis of this data, as well as the EOC data for Georgia Cyber Academy. We'll then break this down even further into our specific demographics and how they performed on the EOC, followed by some growth areas and next steps to approach these growth areas. So the purpose is I'm going to provide a concise summary of the Georgia Cyber demographics, K through 12. I will analyze the secondary grade band student achievement data, specifically with the EOC in the years 2020 to 2021, 2018 to 2019, and 2017 to 2018. The purpose of this is also to establish action steps to improve GCA growth areas. Looking at the K through 12 student demographics, we teach a lot of students. As of 2020 to 2021, we taught over 11,000 students across the state of Georgia. This is split right down the middle with male versus female. And also during 2020 to 2021, our primary population of students is Black. The second most prominent is white students. We also serve a high number of economically disadvantaged students. As of 2017, there was around 67% of our students who were economically disadvantaged, and now it has been lowered to about 42%. We are still a Title I school, and we definitely keep these demographics in mind as we develop our resources and our interventions. Teacher-wise, we look a little bit different. So we have a large majority of our teachers under the white demographic. You can kind of see this chart here on the right looks like a little olive. So our teacher population does look different from our student population, and I will discuss how this plays in when I talk about our growth areas and next steps. So I will address the difference in population towards the end of the presentation. But first I want to highlight our EOC data. So this will be analyzing the years 17 to 18, 18 to 19, and 20 to 21. And during this time, I will be comparing state and Georgia Cyber data. Because Georgia Cyber is a charter school, we are our own district. So I will supplement this by going into the specific demographic performance. As a state, we have two graphs here. The one on the bottom left is communicating the number of students tested in the state of Georgia, and the one on the top right is the percentage of proficient and distinguished learners for each test. When looking at this data, we make a few observations. As the number of students decreases, test scores decrease. For all contents, the percentage of proficient and distinguished learners significantly decreased from 2017-2018 to 2020 and 2021. And then finally, biology consistently had the highest number of students tested and the highest percentage of proficient and distinguished learners. Now, making these observations and knowing a little bit about what happened during these years, we can make some inferences. So results need to be interpreted in the context of COVID-19 as learning environments were severely impacted. And this caused fewer students to participate in 2021 compared to previous years out of health and safety concerns. The Georgia DOE urges us to use caution when comparing year-to-year data due to the differences in learning environment and assessment participation. And finally, when more students are tested, scores increase because each student is a much smaller part of the larger population. So we can infer, based off what we've observed, that these test scores are severely impacted by COVID-19 and the change in learning environment. And students have opted out of taking these tests during the year of 2020-2021. So how did this impact Georgia Cyber? While looking at these charts in the same placement, the bottom left is the number of students, the top right is the percentage of proficient and distinguished learners. We can observe that the number of students does not appear to impact Georgia Cyber School performance. Additionally, American literature and composition performance has remained fairly consistent, while the other content areas have seen significant improvement from 2017-2018 to 2020-2021, the most improvement being with Algebra 1. And then finally, as of 2021, student proficient and distinguished rates are highest in biology, and this is the same as the state. So what can we infer from the Georgia Cyber Academy data? Well, GCA is a virtual school. Therefore, instruction was not severely impacted at the height of the pandemic. So unaltered instruction aided in the maintenance and improvement of these state testing scores. Fewer students were tested as the years progressed, and this did make each student carry a little bit more weight. But I definitely, with this data, think that higher levels of participation and success are going to be expected in future school years. Georgia Cyber did a very nice job keeping instruction consistent throughout the pandemic, and this is obviously reflected in our testing scores. So how did the specific demographics perform on these EOC tests at Georgia Cyber? So we get 4 charts here. We are looking at, in the top left, our U.S. history scores. Top right is biology. Bottom left is Algebra 1, and bottom right is American Lit and composition. So we can take a second to look at these charts, but on the next page, we get the charts again here at the top, and we get the GCA demographic analysis. So some observations for these charts. For all subjects, students with disabilities are the lowest performing group, and Asian students are the highest performing group. So you can see at the lines at the bottoms of each of these graphs, that dark orange red line is the students with disabilities line. And especially in the American Lit and composition, we can see they are well below their peers in performance. For all groups except for the Asian students, biology test scores increased between the years of 2017-2018 to 2020-2021. From 1819 to 2021, all students groups saw a decline in their American Lit and Comp scores. Algebra has the lowest rates of success for all student groups, and the number of students tested in 2020-21 was much less compared to previous years. So we've made these observations. What can we infer? The Asian students make up a small percentage of the student population, only 2%. So that small percentage is doing very well, but that is still a very small percentage of students. For students with disabilities, it appears that the type of question makes a difference. For example, in biology, most of the questions are some form of multiple choice, whereas the American Lit test is requiring a constructed response. This seems to be affecting their grade. The number of students tested for all content areas was almost cut in half between 17-18 to 20-21, and most GCA students choose not to participate in milestones testing for the 2021 school year due to various reasons. So after looking at this data, some growth areas that I am able to identify is growing in our constructed responses, specifically with the students with disabilities. All students need to address their algebra concepts. We need to focus on testing environment and diversity awareness. So here's some next steps to address those growth areas. Step 1, increase the amount of writing done in all classrooms to improve student familiarity with constructed responses. Step 2, differentiate technology supports to help students master algebra concepts. We can utilize resources like Classcraft and Nearpod. This can give us more experience and more positive behavioral interventions regarding these topics, because students tend to avoid what they feel like they're going to struggle with. And additionally, we can help families identify ways to support their learners at home. Step 3 is improve assessment supports for students with disabilities. In the state testing environment, they are being assessed in a new environment. So how can we better mimic one's remote learning environment during in-person state testing? I think that is going to be key in improving our EOC testing scores, since students are no longer in their homes for the first time in the entire school year. We need to be able to mimic that environment to help them succeed. And then finally, to leave you with a question that you can think about is Georgia Cyber for Georgia. We teach students across the state, and it is very clear that we have high levels of diversity in our students, but not high levels of diversity in our staff. So how can we maximize our technology resources as a virtual school to address the diverse needs of each student across the state? That is going to be an additional challenge for our school to maximize our performance. Here are my resources for this presentation. Thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.